5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
How about we do it again?
6, 7, 4, 3, 2, 1. I think I farted.
Okay, let's try one more
I
time.
definitely.
Ready?
I can move you. Making review.
Say 6,
6,
5,
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello, and welcome to the 271st episode of Rank and Review, the return of slasher cinema, and the return of regular contributor and great friend of mine, Mr. Scott Lehman. And I feel like we're playing to our strengths in that Scott and I grew up loving this genre. We like slasher movies, even kind of sloppy, slap-together slasher movies. There's just something appealing to us about the genre, so we're going to get into it, we're going to dig deep, and we're going to get bloody. So prepare for that. Welcome the long-awaited return of the Jerry Awards, where we can weigh in on some WTF moments and some best kills. And I think some bloody good times are awaiting. But you can let me know how you felt about it by sending me feedback at RanknReview@gmail.com. That's RanknReview@gmail.com. You can check out the website at RanknReview.ca. You can seek out the podcast on YouTube. I'm hoping to get some more support there. Please feel free to leave your ranks under your favorite episode. Leave a like under some of your favorite episodes. And leave a comments on some of your least, because any kind of traffic helps, particularly those likes and subscribes and comments. So, I hate to be a beggar begging, but here's me begging you to be that way. But enough of this. Let's talk about people being not very smart, not making good decisions, putting themselves in dangerous places, and for the most part, not getting out of them. Let's talk about slasher cinema. With spoilers. And coarse language. And slashing. I've got Mr. Scott Lehman back on the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Geez, we've never talked about slasher movies before on the podcast, have we?
No, usually it's rom-coms. We did a lot of those.
I just remember I humiliated myself when we did our second zombie episode by asking, we've never done a zombie episode before, have we? And you're like, well, yeah, actually. And
well, not since the last one.
That's right. But we've done a few slasher selections, and the reason I like to have you for the slasher cinema episodes is because you, like me, have a great affection for the genre. And I don't think it's wrong to say we go into this list as fans and that we might be grading a little bit on a curb for some of these movies. Scott's actually wearing a Halloween t-shirt as we speak.
Yeah.
I think, and I don't know if we talked about this previously, but there's a checklist that we kind of want when we watch a standard slasher movie, and if you click off enough of it, I think Scott and I are going to be there for you. Is that unfair?
It's true. If something say, hey, it checks off all the slasher movie boxes, I'm on board. A lot of people kind of thumb their nose at the slashers because they say there's not much to it, and in fairness, sometimes they're right. It's a simple story sometimes. Sometimes people are going to add a new twist to it or something we haven't seen before, which I think is kind of exciting watching slashers as long as I have to see something new every now and then. It's like, well, okay, you surprised me. I've seen a lot of stabbings, so what else can we do? So people are getting pretty creative in what they're offering us sometimes.
I agree.
I
agree, like, you need to bring, like, at least some sort of surprise or some nuance that when you come into a new slasher movie. But I will also argue that for this type of filmmaking, and I would say it's true of a romantic comedy, too, because romantic comedies are absolutely formula pictures as much as these ones are. Two things that I can let go of when I watch these types of movies is if I feel like I know where it's going, that's okay. That doesn't wreck the movie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's something that a lot of other times, if I'm ahead of a dramatic movie or ahead of a movie that's trying to be super smart, right? Like that kind of deflates the experience. Whereas in a rom-com, you kind of know that the girl's going to get the guy at the end of the movie, and in a slasher movie, you know that these characters are going to make dumb mistakes, and that's part of the formula. And I think when you go in as a fan, you go in accepting of the formula. A lot of these movies, a lot of them I also noticed are less than 90 minutes long. We have a lot of like 85 to 88 minute movies here. But even at that, the first 45 minutes of these movies kind of tend to wander. And again, if you're not familiar with the territory, or if you're not into the genre as much as Scott and I, some people lose patience with it the way I sometimes lose patience with a romantic comedy. You're either into it or you're not.
I think that was a lot of the 80s slashers we grew with went that way a lot, I found. Yeah, okay, we're going to introduce, these are the characters, and get to know them a bit, and now for the last 40 minutes, they're all going to die one at a time. It seems like it took kind of a shift afterwards, and people didn't have the patience, and we need to see someone die a little bit earlier. And I mean, yeah, the 80s, even once they did, usually you'd have someone die in the opening sequence, and then, a couple here and there. But, yeah, some of these, they get to the meat a little bit quicker, and unless you're a Terrifier, you're at 90 minutes. A slasher shouldn't overstay. Usually they are that quick, easy. You can fit a lot, and that's why in Halloween in October I can watch a lot more horror movies than when I do another theme month or something, because they fit.
Yeah,
you can easily watch 3 in an evening and go to work the next day. They're quick that way.
But it also makes them kind of blend together, and they also, become tropey. And I think we're going to recognize these things as we talk about these 6 movies. If memory serves, it was in the violent nature that kind of attracted you to this list. Is that right?
That's what sparked the conversation. I know we were trying to find a group of movies to talk about, and I had recently watched that movie, and I wanted to talk to anyone, and then I thought, I want to talk to Larry about this movie. And it's one of those movies that it just pauses a conversation, and we'll have that conversation, but you had that in a group, and I looked over the group in that, and saw some other interesting movies to talk about, and 3 of them that I had not actually seen before.
Oh, good.
So it gave me a reason to watch some movies I haven't watched yet too, and give me that excuse. I'm down for that.
I think there's a spectrum here. I think that we don't have all hits, but I do think we have a classic, at least one, possibly 2, we don't know. Is there anything else you want to say by way of introduction before we list off these slashers and start getting bloody?
I don't know what else there is to say. We can kick it off. I think something nice about slashers is they're an easy film for a horror fan to put on, and you don't have to be focused everything into it. It's kind of what you're getting into usually. They're a comfort food kind of movie for me. If you just want to kind of lay on the couch and put it on and watch it happen. And sometimes it's weird watching a bunch of them in a short period, because they can kind of blend after a while, and you need to kind of take a break and watch something that's different in theme, just to kind of, so when you get back into it, it's not all one long movie, I guess. They do have that. And then, sometimes they're a little critical on them, thinking oh man, there's nothing really to this. It's just a bunch of teenagers getting killed. And it's like, wait a second. Isn't that what every movie I grew up watching was? And why is that okay in Friday the 13th Part 6, but not in...
Lost After Dark or whatever,
Yeah.
And, I like that the slasher genre is very much ours. If you like the slasher genre, it's all in. You just invest in it. You can watch a really crappy slasher movie and get some superficial joy out of it. If you hate the slasher genre, it will be just painful for you the entire time. And in a way, I like that it's ours. The way you and I talked about Terrifier 3 on the Christmas episode too. yeah, maybe in a franchise it will feel a need to top itself, but in a given slasher movie, there seems to be, this is how far the line's going to be. Are we going to care more about scaring you, or are we going to care more about grossing you out? Right? Usually, I like a nice balance in between there, but sometimes it tips to one side or the other. But I think that's a pretty good introduction.
Yeah, and the thing about growing with them, too, I mean, I always kind of go back to 80s, and it's because so many of these directors who watch behind the scenes or interviews, so many of them talk about 80s throwback. You know, I want to do an 80s throwback movie. You see that in a couple of them here in this list. And it's such a special era. I wonder if, like, 30 years from now, a director's going to do, like, a 2020 throwback horror movie or something like that. Is it going to be the same? I wonder. But every decade that goes by, we always go back to, this is the theme, this is the style we want to do. And I'm here for it. I love it.
Yeah. And I think that why it stuck in the 80s is a couple things. I think that the genre was kind of perfected in the late 70s, early 80s. And because it was before internet, before cell phones, before a lot of our new tech, a lot of the obstacles as far as your plot, as far as why are the people not running or driving away or calling the police, they're covered for you. So it's good that you bring up the 80s, because a lot of these slasher movies do feel stuck there. And I think will remain so until they figure out a way to modernize them, you know. But I don't think the ones that not that they don't experiment. Obviously, In a Violent Nature is taking a path, but most part, this group of movies aren't fucking with the formula too much. So, the 6 slasher movies that Mr. Scott Lehman is joining me to discuss today, my words. The Burning from 1981, classic slasher movie. We're going to talk about an 80s emulating slasher movie called Lost After Dark. A new one to you, brought to you by the World Wrestling Entertainment Studios, No One Lives. Then we have a low budget, and a lot of slasher movies are low budget, so I'm not saying that with any stigma necessarily. A couple of them, one's called Desecrated, and another one has a lot of sort of cult smoke around it called Laid to Rest. It does have a sequel, but the writer, creator, director has passed away, so I guess the IP has kind of died with him as far as we know. And then we'll finish with I think we both have a lot to say about In a Violent Nature, a new Canadian-made slasher movie that's been making some waves. Thanks for being here, brother.
Yeah, that's a good thing to point out. We got a little bit of Canadian content with In a Violent Nature, and Lost After Dark, I think, was also...
yeah, Canadian-made anyway. Yeah. It's set in America for some reason, but it was made in Canada. Let's do this.
The legend of terror isn't just a campfire story anymore.
They say he smashed his way through the bunk room door, just a mass of flames. Burned alive, cried out, "I will return! I will have my revenge!" He lives on whatever he can catch. Right now, he's out there, watching, waiting. Who's there?
What happened one summer 5 years ago is about to happen again, and again, and again. The Burning.
So one of the things that Mr. Scott Lehman pointed out about The Burning that makes it, I think, particularly special is it might be one of the very few, one of the only, like, other than maybe After the Sunset or whatever, like, one of the very few respected cult 80s movies that doesn't have a sequel, doesn't have a remake, doesn't have any kind of legacy, whatnot, or a prequel, nothing. The Burning is just The Burning. And it has Tom Savini doing his special effects, coming right off of Friday the 13th. In fact, he said no to Friday the 13th Part 2 and said yes to The Burning. And, of course, the two movies are incredibly similar in that they're campsite slasher movies, but Tom Savini's going to bring us that little extra special touch with his very, memorable, gruesome makeup effects. But it's also just the aesthetic of The Burning. Like, it's got everything that I love about the classic 80s slasher movies. It's full of faces that would become much more famous in subsequent years, which is always kind of fun to see. It's this is weirdly tactless to say, but it's part of the appeal, especially when I was young. It's a strangely horny movie. Like, all of the characters, and this is pretty genuine, they're teenagers at camp, are preoccupied with trying to hook up with each other. But not in necessarily the hateful kind of, like, there's always the douchebag characters, and they're definitely them there here, but, like, it's a uniform. Nowadays, it's like one or two characters are obsessed with sex. In the 80s, all of the characters were. And it wasn't questioned. It was just, this is youth, this is, this is that stage of life. And it sort of somehow compounds the tragedy that they're going to be the victims of this awful violence. It's also...
Yeah, it's one of those boxes. It's one of those boxes that you're talking about checking off. All right, we had some teenagers. Check. Are they horny? Yeah.
It sounds tactless to say that, but yes, I do think we can count that as some of the things that we can expect. Also, it has the air quotes based on a true story going for, and that the Cropsey legend was a real thing. There was a mental institution that got shut down. There were crazy people that were let off into the area, and bad things happened. Did the events of the burning take place? No, but there was some guy named Cropsey and some missing persons associated with him, apparently. Tom Savini has famously said that he is disappointed with the burn makeup in this movie, and as much as I respect Tom Savini, I have to disagree. I think the burn makeup looks awesome in the burning. And yeah, the gore is where the movie delivers, but if you grew up with the 80s aesthetic the way Scott and I did, I think that the burning is such a safe bet if you haven't seen it. And more likely, if you're listening to this podcast, you have seen it and you hold it in high regard. I know I do. But what do you think of The Burning, Mr. Lehman?
Well, it's a definite classic of that genre, and like you're saying, it's kind of a fun watch. It's one of those fun 80s slasher movies where there's, the camp. It's when it takes place in a camp, you got your kids, you got your counselors, and you got your camp runners, and a variety of people, and it's just something, everyone's away, all the adults are gone, so you're a little bit more secluded. It's 1981, so no one has cell phones to call for help, so we got that issue out of the way. I could see people not having seen this, though, because it didn't produce a Jason Voorhees or a Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, list goes on. I'm not sure what it was about it that never made it a franchise, or was it just because we already had probably Friday the 13th Part 2 coming out? Do we need another camp slasher franchise? Kind of similar, but yeah, if they made Part 2, Part 3, how much different would it have gone than a Friday the 13th, I guess. But yeah, the kills are great. I like the burn makeup, as you said, like when early on we see Cropsey's arm in the hospital when he's recovering from his burns.
He clutches the nurse.
Yeah, like that looks really good. I thought his skin just looks, toasted and burned and crackly, like you're making some nice brisket or something on the barbecue.
Almost done.
The face reveal at the end is maybe that's more what he means, because it's pretty cool when you see it, but I'm not sure if it's
authentic.
I've never seen someone with that kind of burn, I guess, so I don't know.
He looks like a melted candle. I guess I understand. Tom Savini's kind of like, he wants it to feel real, and I don't think it felt real to him. He just kind of ran out of time and money. But it absolutely does the job. Like when we see his face, it's horrible. We know this guy's been burned. We actually see it happen. It was a prank gone wrong. But in the run from his cabin where he is lit on fire to the lake, his body is consumed with fire, and he is terribly disfigured. And he escapes the hospital, and he brings his vengeance back to the camp. Do these kids deserve this vengeance? Some of them, but most of them, nope, just wrong place, wrong time. The death of youth.
Yeah, it's funny because it kind of starts off, our pre-credit sequence. It gives us the history and shows the accident that causes the burn. But then when the movie starts, it almost gives you that feel it's going to be one of those New York sleazy horror movies. Because he comes out of the hospital and he's walking down the streets of, the peep shows and prostitutes, and I think he picks a prostitute and takes her back to a apartment or hotel or something.
Very unappealing prostitute, I must say.
Yeah. But, those kind of movies, right? Like
Yeah.
Maniac or something. It kind of had that vibe going for it, and which is fine. I like those movies as well. But then it transfers back to the campground, and you say, "Oh, okay, we're going to go back to the camp." This is more familiar territory for some fun, because the sleazy ones aren't the New York style ones are. They don't have as much fun, I guess, as the camp. The kids up to their hijinks and it's shooting BB guns at the bully. And
there's something legit about the exploitation in these teenage camp movies, because teenage camps are going to be pretty, horny places, right? With these grungy New York movies, they're just sleazy because they want to be sleazy. I mean, and The Burning wants to be sleazy too. I mean, there's a lot of unnecessary nudity, but fairly balanced, both boys and girls. And it just sort of, again, the celebration of the energy of youth that's going to be destroyed. And there is the first half of the movie where there's suspense and we're getting to know these kids. And then there's the second half of the movie where most of the bloodletting takes place. Now, this was 1981, so the slasher formula was sort of starting to lock in, but I don't think the rules were, firmly in place. And I think that the innovative thing, perhaps, that this movie does is the centerpiece kill sequence. We lose 5 characters, 3 of which we know pretty well, all at once. Typically in the slasher movie, we lose a character and then they're like, where did he go? Let's split up to go look for them. And then they lose another character and then, but no, The Burning goes from 0 to 100 in 2 seconds. And I do think that's the sequence that people talk about when they, bring up The Burning, and it's the signature image of those shears being silhouetted as he raises them up over his head. But above and beyond all of that, that's not something we see in a lot of horror movies, where the slasher just, takes out almost half a dozen people in about 30 seconds.
Yeah, the raft scene is the one scene that if you mention that one, if someone's saying, I'm not sure if I've seen The Burning, maybe I have, I can't remember, you bring up the raft scene, and they say, oh, that's that movie. Yeah, okay, I've seen that then.
Yeah.
And Cropsey he has his garden shears is the one weapon he uses, I think, pretty
consistently
much all the time. Yeah. So he's not really doesn't really get creative in different styles of kills, but that scene is different. I'm not sure if there's another movie really that does it like that, where we're going to kill half the cast here in 30 seconds. But it is a big cast, and some of these faces are neat to see. The one that really jumps out to me is Jason Alexander.
Yeah, he's so young.
When you see someone like that you just don't picture in that kind of movie, and it's definitely him. I mean, as far as easily recognizable, Holly Hunter is in it as well.
Barely any lines.
You may not even notice that. I didn't notice it until I read that after, and I had to go back and say, oh, okay, I guess that is her. But he's got that George Costanza voice, and
he's being funny, and he stands out. Yeah.
It's kind of neat seeing those guys. And
Fisher Stevens looks like he's 12 years old. I guess he was 16, but he looks like a little boy in this movie. But
I like seeing that's kind of the fun part about it too. I don't think any of the acting is bad. I mean, it's for what it is. I think everyone kind of plays their role, and you always have the dickhead character, and the difference is, when you have so many people die in one raft scene, you don't have as much of the one by one and say, hey, I'll be right back.
Yeah.
No, you're not getting but you still do get those scenes as well. So
they were doing everything right. They were sticking together. They were going to get the other raft so that they could get themselves out of being stranded, They weren't doing the stupid thing, but it didn't matter. Because Cropsey's apparently really good at keeping his balance on a rickety raft while he was doing his business. But it happens so quickly, you don't have any time to fight about it, It's just done.
And just when he stands up holding these shears up, and at least the canoe's not going to tip over when you do that.
But I will say I've been pretty high praise. I think that the Cropsey story and the sort of building suspense of when's the killer going to hit is significantly more interesting than the main actual, camp counselor, camp kids dynamic and what was going on. We like them well enough, and it does the job, but I do feel, especially with the way it's paced, that modern audiences will be a little bit impatient for the first half of this movie. But I promise you, it will pay off.
I think it does. It takes a little while before the campers start meeting an end, doesn't it?
Yeah.
There's a little bit of, they play the music, the tension music, a girl showering, and we're privy to that. And it turns out one of the other kids is watching her, but we don't. If somebody's watching her, they play ominous music. Maybe it's Cropsey, maybe it's. So you get that hints that someone's kind of around.
First half suspense, second half gore, right?
Yeah. It's like a lot of these movies that we've talked about where, when we talk about Cheerleader Camp, that
right.
kind of movie, I know it's one of your favorites to bring up, where, enough of it goes by and it's like, did this forget that it's a horror movie?
That's right.
But this one's not quite Cheerleader Camp. I think tries to be a bit more serious in what it's doing, but
its tone remains consistent. I think, it's a horror movie, but, it kind of surprises you by how far it goes and how long it stays restrained until it doesn't. And then all of a sudden, there's, the gloves are completely off. People are getting stabbed through the neck into a tree and gurgling out in front of you, and you're like, oh, man.
That's a good kill, and I think maybe there's a bit more impact when you haven't seen someone get sliced every 7 minutes.
That's right.
This kind of, it's like, oh wow, yeah, geez, look at that. That's a lot of blood. Are you okay?
No, he's not walking that one off. So.
Yeah, there's something to be said for that. I guess some patience too.
Yeah. And again, it's classic setting. The campfire stories, it's the movie you have in your head when you're sleeping in a tent, Friday the 13th, it's definitely the franchise that obviously, made the best bank out of it. But The Burning did it really well. Arguably better than most of the Friday the 13th sequels. I think a case could be made. Cropsey didn't have the, marquee power of Jason Voorhees somehow.
And I didn't see this one right away either.
You caught up with it.
I've seen all the others when I was young. It kind of came to me a little bit later, hearing about The Burning, and then finally checking it out. And I think I had an old DVD at one point, and the cover didn't really show much on it either, so it just didn't have that flash.
Yeah.
But it's if you haven't seen it and you're a fan of those kinds of movies, it is definitely worth your time. Just have some fun with it.
Yeah. And maybe the one true real-world scary thing is that it's one of the first productions head by Harvey Weinstein. A young Harvey Weinstein brought this movie into the world, and he spent a little bit of money and made a lot. So it was the beginning of a long, successful, and as it turns out, terrible career. But don't think about that while you're watching The Burning, because it is a really good slasher movie. Good enough?
Yeah.
Hello? Some of these are human.
Is that made from people?
I think I know where we are. I think I heard about this place. You telling me you guys ain't never heard of the Jodes?
Junior Jode and his psycho family?
They were killers.
Not just killers.
Right, cannibals.
It's just a story to scare kids.
Is it?
I looked into his eyes.
I think he may be the devil.
I've killed more men than you could possibly imagine. One more is fine with me.
All right, once we get outside, we haul ass. You hear me?
I just got chastised by Larry for doing a slasher review and not having a beer. So
I don't know if it didn't really have that satisfying pop I was expecting.
No. So I'll pour myself an Irish red because we're going to be talking about so much red stuff here. So
I'm drinking coffee. I'm not as cool as Scott, but we're going to talk about a movie called Lost After Dark. This is, I believe, 2015, so we've jumped ahead quite a ways from 1981. And this is a really bizarre one for me, Scott, because, like, it follows a lot of the slasher tropes, and it checks off a lot of boxes, and it's got some good gore to it. I don't think the acting sucks. I like that it's set in the 80s. I think, it sort of homages the classic, slasher movies, and it helps them not having cell phones, not having all these modern answers, blah, blah, blah. I've seen the movie twice, and I don't know if it's a straight horror movie or a satire so dry that, like, it should be a fire hazard, or that it's so dry it dies of thirst. Because there are times where I feel like it's being deliberately satirical and funny, but mainly it's not. In fact, most of the funny characters are the characters that get killed off first. And then I sort of decided I'm overthinking this. It's just a straight slasher movie. It's just a little bit clumsy, and I'm mistaking that clumsiness for deliberate humor. And then there's a scene about 2/3 of the way through the movie where all of a sudden there's a missing reel. Like the killer's about to close in on a victim, and the film breaks, and there's a missing reel, and we jump ahead 10 minutes in the film, and things continue. Like the same sort of joke that they played in the Grindhouse, the Robert Rodriguez, Quentin Tarantino Grindhouse picture. But the rest of the movie wasn't supporting that joke at all. Like, that is a completely non sequitur, breaking the fourth wall, like, we're in a different scary movie airplane type of satire. And the rest of the movie isn't that. And it has moments where it actually kind of works. It has some pretty grim violence in it. And, some winks that aren't necessarily overtly funny, but that slasher appreciators might get behind. It has the same problem that a lot of slashers do, in that the first half is a lot slower and less interesting than the second half. But I talked about checking those boxes. This movie checked off a lot of those boxes, and yet I still feel unsatisfied by it, and I still feel bewildered by it, because I'm failing as a critic to say that I've seen this movie twice, and I don't know if it's a straight horror movie or if it's a horror satire. And am I crazy? Please help me. Like, I have no idea how to review Lost After Dark.
Okay, well, this could be fun. Well, so you mentioned checking off boxes,
yep,
which is a segue to the box that the movie comes in. I just want to say, the slipcover, the artwork for this movie is what drew me to it initially. I seen that, and I thought, that is a beautiful cover.
Yep.
The point for this movie, Lost After Dark. Unfortunately, I think that the art is probably the best part of the movie.
Right.
And I don't mean that to sound mean, but I just don't think the movie doesn't live up to how excellent this cover looks like it's going to be. As far as, is it a horror, is it a comedy, I agree once that there's moments in there that make you feel kind of chuckly, or hints of satire, or they're poking at the 80s. This guy obviously is a fan of 80s horror, and he wants to make it feel like this is a genuine 80s thing. There's some scenes with some speck of dirt in the film, or some burns, or a little bit of debris to make it look a little bit aged. But when they go all out and they do the missing reel thing, I mean, that's when you know, okay, they're going for a big chuckle or a big laugh here. But to me, that happened, and my reaction was like, come on.
It was kind of fuck you. Kind of fuck you, right?
Because Grindhouse did that, and that was a theatrical experience. They wanted to duplicate watching a movie in the old theater with, this would happen sometime. This, I felt, was supposed to be more like watching an old VHS tape.
Yes.
That's what I wanted to feel like. Hey, this is like something we rented off of the wall on a VHS because it looked really cool, and we watched it, when the parents went to sleep, kind of thing. That's what I expected. And when you're watching a movie at home on VHS, there's no missing reel. You'll have maybe some tracking issues. That's what I think they should have done more. Have some bad tracking issues at points, make it look like it's been rewound a couple times too many.
Maybe some deliberately bad acting. Because I thought the acting was for the most part okay, and part of the, hurdles you have to get over in some of the old super cheap slasher movies is that not all the characters are that convincing, right? And it seemed like they could be leaning into the satire more, and they were deliberately not until they were. Like,
yeah, I wasn't a big fan of the missing reel in this one. If we're going to just talk specifically about that. Otherwise, the acting, I think for what they were doing, it was fine. Maybe some of the writing wasn't tremendous for them, the lines for them to say, but they did the best they could. Every character was different. You know, they had the you knew who everybody was. A lot of these movies you'll watch, and I don't remember who is who. There's just everyone kind of blends, especially in like some of the newer ones, like like your Friday the 13th remake ones, or where just everyone's a dick, or it's like, oh, who's she? How many people are left? This way, everyone looks different. Everyone's got their identity, and I think there was only really one character in the movie that had that kind of asshole dick thing where he's just kind of mean to everybody,
and he lasts a long time.
Yeah, and that was interesting because they didn't die in the order that you expected them to,
and I think that's deliberate.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because definitely there's someone that's set up as your final girl, and I believe she was the first one to get killed.
Yeah.
We meet her, we kind of get her background, her story. It's her family's cabin they're going to. We meet her dad, and even after she dies, her dad is still a character in the movie, which was strange. They definitely, who's going to be the last survivor? He's like, I don't know anymore. I know how many people are left. No, you don't, because there's that missing reel, so surprise.
Yeah. Again, you would think that if you're leaning on the comedy, that the death would be handled a little bit differently too, and that it might be a little more over the top to the line of cartoonish. But when someone slowly gets an eye puncture, which I thought of you, you're like, damn, the movie goes hard all of a sudden.
Yeah, they had a full-on Fulci eye gouging, hey?
Yeah. And I know you have a thing with eye stuff, so I couldn't help but have sympathetic sort of pangs on your behalf. But again, the scenes by themselves aren't bad, but put together, they don't all seem to be belonging to the same movie. I've been criticized, because I sometimes talk about this about movies from overseas that shift tonally quite radically in a way that I'm not used to or comfortable with, and the pushback I get is just because you're not comfortable with it, it doesn't mean that the movie is bad. And like, I love slasher movies. I actively watch Lost After Dark wanting to like it, and it keeps on kicking me out of the movie and into my own head. Robert Patrick is sort of the quote name in this movie.
Yeah.
I guess we didn't really talk about plot. The kids, it's in the middle of the 80s. They steal a school bus. They want to go to some cabin and get drunk and party. They run out of gas, and they go to this random house, worst place they could have gone. And again, the simplicity of it screams satire to me. And there's a character named Cunningham, and there's a character named Laurie, and the house belongs to the Jodes, which is like, the family from Grapes of Wrath. It's like intro to literature literate, right? But if it was doing that on purpose and going, it's funny, then okay, fine. But they didn't really feel like they were playing it that way. That was just the characters' names. In Night of the Creeps, that all of that stuff seems deliberate. It's distracting or it isn't, but it's deliberate. I guess a lot of the decisions being made throughout the film seemed counterintuitive. Like, this is the vibe of the movie today.
Yeah, I didn't really get it to be a comedy per se, like as far as joke, laugh kind of humor. Maybe it was more intent with like, look how hard we're trying to make it look like 80s, with the wardrobe, the cars, girls playing with their Rubik's Cube on the bus, listening to their Ghetto Blaster with a cassette mixtape in it.
Yeah.
Those kind of just hints. I think they're just hoping the audience is going to have fun with those and say, oh yeah, I remember these days.
But nostalgia alone isn't enough, right?
No. There was one moment that I'm not sure why it stood out to me. When they were talking about the history of the family there, that they were cannibals, and one of the girls misheard it as cannonballs.
What?
And she said, what? A cannonball? I don't want to be eaten by a cannonball. And he says, no, I said cannibal. Oh, I don't understand. But I think that was strange. I'm not sure if that was just kind of a funny moment or not, but that that's as laugh out loud funny as the movie gets.
Yeah.
Really, if they're going for funny. For me, also, the moment when the bus breaks down or runs out of gas, they start taking inventory of the food they have. They say,
Right away.
We got 2 bags. We got 2 bags of chips. We got some or whatever it was, and it's guys, you've been like stranded for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
You're not going to starve to death. It made me think of that South Park episode when they were stranded with a snowstorm and resorted to cannibalism, and they were only the power was up for 2 hours or something.
That's right. Well, and again, play it for laughs, but no, there's this sort of the 2 characters that find the house initially and are looking for gas. We spend so much time. He's got this crush on this girl, but he doesn't know how to handle it. And like, are we going to invest in this character? But we know that like none of this is what the movie's about. It's not a rom-com. It's not, is the nerd going to get the girl? That's not the movie that we're watching. So it feels foolhardy that they're trying to get us to invest in that. But while it's happening, I don't think the actors are handling it bad. It's just, is this the right scene for this movie?
Specifically, that scene you're talking about, I was going to mention, like the, you'd recognize I don't know the characters' names, but there was the larger boy,
yeah,
and then the rocker girl, I guess you would call him. He's got a crush on her, and there's a lot of dialogue between them as they're walking. And you really kind of do get to know them, and you sort of like them. Like, she seems nice, he seems nice, and I don't know why I cared, but it's like, I hope this works out for him. And then you realize, oh no, he's gonna die now. So,
this is not the movie we were watching.
Rather than just make it faceless people getting slaughtered, they did an okay job of making you sort of not hate these people and just want them to get killed. Like so many movies, it's like, oh man, I can't wait for them all to die.
Yeah,
I kind of felt that when he finally got.
Even when his love interest eventually gets killed, she's hiding behind a tree watching someone else try to be brave, and the killer sneaks up behind her and mashes her head into the tree. Like, it's a pretty inglorious end, but not expected. You're expecting the attack to come to the other girl who's not hiding. So, like, it does have some skill, and I think that's what frustrates me about it. It's one of these movies that's so close to being a good movie that I feel, like, teased by it.
Yeah, and I think, after I watched this one through the 6, and I felt like I didn't really remember it too much. I had to think about it again or watch bits of it and say, okay, right, that's that movie.
Yeah.
It didn't really have enough to stand out. You did mention the Terminator himself, Robert Patrick, in here. What did you think of his interesting character?
I think it was clearly a paycheck performance, and I usually defend Robert Patrick, but I don't know, it seems a little bit phoned in. They're depending on his image as T2, but it's 2014 at this point. Like, how much capital does he bring to your movie by himself? And I like this guy as an actor. I'm not even trying to be mean about it, but he does feel like all of his scenes were shot separately from the core of the cast, except for when absolutely necessary, and that they were playing up that T2 energy, so you knew he was going to die like a punk. And he did, but we just didn't really get to see it.
No, just got his severed head thrown at us.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm indifferent, I guess, to his area of the movie, if I'm honest.
I know when he goes to meet the one girl's father at her house, and he starts talking about they
blackmailing him.
They stole the van or the bus, and trying to figure out where they're going. The dad gets concerned and says, "You want me to make some coffee?"
Yeah.
I think he says something like, "Yeah, you want to Irish it up a bit?" It's a weird line. But yeah, let's get fucked up.
Let's get drunk and then go look for our kids.
Let's have a couple drinks and tell war stories, and then we'll go get the kids. We didn't talk really about the killer at all.
Jode?
What are your thoughts on him?
Again, pretty bland, cannibal, guy with a beard. There wasn't really a lot memorable about him. He's just a big, hillbilly-looking dude. So he didn't really make much of an impression. And I wasn't really sure. He seemed strong and didn't make a lot of noise, but we weren't allowed any access to him. And I think that was a deliberate choice, but maybe not the right one.
It looked a little bit odd. I thought, the beard looked like a fake beard.
It really did.
Like Halloween Alley or Spirit Halloween or something. Yeah, strange. We didn't really learn a lot about him, and just had a weird, odd look to him, I thought.
Yeah. But not memorable.
No, didn't have like a cool burnt thing that kind of just stood apart.
Sorry, you got a little garbled there, but you're right. He didn't have a burned face or a cool chrome mask or a hockey mask or anything, is what you were saying. We just had a little bit of distortion there. I don't know how to recommend it. I guess I couldn't honestly give it a full-hearted recommend, but I don't want to be super mean to it because, like I say, it does check enough of those boxes. I do think it will have an audience. Maybe it was the wrong day for me, but yeah. Meh.
I think it's 85 minutes.
Yeah.
And if you're curious about it, and you got 85 minutes.
Yeah, but not enthusiastic, right?
I know. I think it would have lost the whole star for me because of that missing reel.
Yeah. For shame.
What were you doing in the trunk of that car?
Where is he? You killed him, right? Please tell me he's dead.
I want this mother dead.
He's gonna come and he's gonna kill you all.
Come on! Bring it!
Do you people have any idea what you're dealing with?
What's he doing?
He's trapping us. We should have run while you had the chance.
All right, I hope I'm saying this right. Ryuhei Kitamura is the name of the director of No One Lives. I know him from this film called Midnight Meat Train and another one called Versus. Versus is kind of all over the place, stylistically strong, but maybe not a great movie. The Midnight Meat Train, I assume you've heard of it. It's this Lovecraftian sort of half slasher movie, half Lovecraft movie, which I have a lot of respect for, but unfortunately some of the CGI in it is a little rickety. So the WWE, World Wrestling Entertainment, has a whole film studio going on where they try to, employ some of their wrestlers and make some money making commercially successful movies. I've reviewed a few of them in the past, typically not that favoritively, but since we're talking about WWE and we're talking about slasher movies, strangely enough, I kind of defend the See No Evil movies. See No Evil 1 and 2. They're not smart movies, but if you're listening to this episode and you haven't seen those, maybe give them a shot. No One Lives is interesting because it didn't make a lot of noise when it first came out, but it's been getting this sort of snowballing reputation in the years that follow it. And Luke Evans is our main character. You kind of start thinking that he and his wife or this woman that he's with are going to be our protagonists, but there's a great switch that happens halfway through the movie. This is a spoiler-centric show, you guys, where he is the biggest badass in this movie. He is a killer. And I think absolutely that's where this movie sort of thrives. It's got really good kills, it's got really good energy, and it doesn't feel slow. Whereas we talked about The Burning and Lost After Dark kind of have the first half is slow and suspenseful, the second half is action. I think that the pace and the stakes are really strong throughout this movie. The kills are good, the acting is good. I like Luke Evans as an actor. Do you feel a butt coming?
Feel your butt.
Feel my butt, Scott. But not too long ago on the podcast, I reviewed a really hilarious anthology movie called Scare Package from Shudder. And there's a scene in that movie great movie. There's a scene in that movie where the lead female character has an opportunity to kill the head slasher, but he's so dreamy that she can't bring himself to do it. And this subplot in this movie about this victim turning into love interest, and the portrayal of Luke Evans' character being as badass and cool as opposed to terrifying and crazy, kind of mixes up the feelings that we're going to have about where we end up in the movie. I mean, it's handled worse in other ways. We're going to talk about a movie that handles it much worse subsequently in this very episode. But it's one of these movies where I see great strengths in it, but there's also stuff that kind of make me facepalm. I will give it a positive review. I will recommend it. I like it, but I feel like I wanted to love it, and I feel with a few twerks, it could be kind of more lovable than it is. But as far as what we want to see when we watch a movie like No One Lives, does it live up to that? Yes. It's not smart, it's fast, it's violent, and it's entertaining. And taken on that, absolutely thumbs up review. But it might actually have been a classic with just a little bit of tweaking. Where do you land on No One Lives?
I'm going to call No One Lives John Wick as a horror movie.
Right.
That's kind of a way to put it. I think that's, Luke Evans, he's a killer, and he's, they build up this legend, or the one girl, she tells this story, well, if you've met him, you're already dead. You're all dead already.
Yeah.
And it felt like a John Wick, you've woken up the boogeyman. But, it's quick. You're right. It's different from the others that way. There's no mystery mark. We see his face immediately. He's the star of the movie. Something different with this is I'm not sure who we're cheering for, or if we're cheering for anybody, because the people that he's killing are bad people as well. They're all criminals and robbers, different, murderers as well in their own right.
They kidnapped his kidnap victim.
Yeah, and so now the killer's going to kill the killers, and I think we're just along for the ride in this one. We feel like there's this one girl in the middle that's innocent, and we just, I guess, want her to get out okay. I think, like you, there were some unanswered questions that the backstory, I guess, they have a couple flashback scenes between the killer and the kidnapped girl, and I think that's where I started to lose it a little bit, because I wasn't really sure what they were going for, building that relationship. I think that was maybe a misstep, but maybe that's just me.
No, I absolutely agree. Anytime they go into the backstory, it stops the tension that's going on in the movie, like who's going to die next or whatever. But in a movie that's completely incredible and not taking itself that seriously, that is the stuff that's impossible to connect to for me. There's a scene where he basically releases her, or says he's going to release this girl in the flashback, and he cuts his own throat, commits suicide basically in front of her. And instead of celebrating and staring him in the eye and watching him bleed out, she saves his life so that she may continue to exist in a world with this violent predator. And I don't think the movie earns it. I think it's really weird, like the whole captivity fetish sort of thing. The movie was already morally gray, and that's fine, but this kind of took it to a different level for me. And it made me not like our own main character, which was sort of, up to that point, the one character that we could absolutely cheer for. She was being kidnapped by one guy, and then she got taken away by these guys, and now that guy's coming to kill these guys, but she's in peril either way, right? Except for she kind of chose to put herself in this position. So, what is her relationship with him? And what's our relationship with him? In the end, the movie's just about its violence, and it operates on that level and is successful on that level. But if it had closed the deal with that character, or, maybe she was as bad as him, maybe that was the big reveal. Maybe we sided with her because intuitively we thought she's our final girl and she's the vulnerable victim. But no. As it turns out, not at all. But the movie doesn't do that. The movie's at its best when it's got some guy dangling over a meat grinder. Or a really beautiful reference to Dr. Giggles.
And you mentioned the comedy in the last movie, Lost After Dark.
Yeah.
Or not, I guess, but this one is not billed at all anywhere on the box I'm looking at as a satire or comedy or anything. But there are definitely more laughs in this one than Lost After Dark. I'm not sure if it's just if that was intended or not, but even just some of the one-liners that Luke Evans had, but somebody asked him why are you doing this or something, and he says because it's great cardio.
Yeah,
things like that. Good lines. They did provide something I don't think I've seen before, or if I haven't, not quite like this. When he kind of used the big wrestler that he kills, he ends up using his body as a transportation vehicle, as the Trojan horse kind of thing. And I did not see that coming when they found this big dead guy, their brother, and they carry him into the barn, and then they leave, and then you see the body start moving under the blankets, and I thought, at that point in my head, I'm thinking, there's going to be a supernatural twist to this. I thought, is it going to be like some sort of virus? Is he coming back as a zombie? And then you see him come out of the body covered in gore. I thought, okay, this is beautiful. I like where this is going.
That's how he Trojan horsed himself into the bad guy's sort of hideout. It also is, like I say, it reminded me very much of the origin story of Dr. Giggles. You remember Dr. Giggles?
Yeah.
He, as a little child, was sewn inside the corpse of his mom and escaped in a very similar way in that movie. I don't know if that was a conscious wink, but I definitely thought of it. And again, incredibly grotesque. And this is what, they deal in. This director does not flinch when it comes to violence at all, at all. And he doesn't mind, breaking reality. I think that was my issue with his first film, Versus, which is all these gangsters and samurais versus zombies in the woods. Like, they kill a guy, he comes back from the dead, they kill him again, he comes back from the dead, they kill him again, and, the movie's 2 hours of that. I think this might be the most successful movie of his that I've seen so far, but like I say, the screenplay is probably where it lets it down. But I can't understate it. If you're in it for the action and the violence and sort of the energy and the vibe, I think this is really good, and it does not drag its feet in the deliberate way that a lot of slasher movies do. If you're impatient watching The Burning, then maybe No One Lives is more to your taste. It is definitely a much more modern, souped up, in-your-face, aggressive horror movie. So it's very conscious of what it's doing. It just I think the movie should have picked sides in a clear way, or no. I thought maybe if there was one more twist, like I say, the girl being evil, or, the super badass bad guy getting tripped up on something very minimal in the third act and undercutting his invincibility because, his foot got hung up on a cord. Be kind of like a nice way to shatter the image, but it's good enough. It's good enough. It's a thumbs up review.
Yeah, he was just always perfect badass. Nothing goes wrong for him. Everything goes as planned. Always shot really cool. Silhouette covered in blood, naked from behind. For the ladies and some guys, I guess.
But he does a good job with it. I think he's doing what's being asked of him. I wouldn't. It's well done. It's well done. It's just a 3-star movie that a lot of people think are a 5-star movie, I think.
I've been keeping everything locked. We had some trouble with intruders on the property.
What's up with this Ben guy? He lives here before my dad bought the place. Apparently they have some kind of deal where you can stay.
You know how I feel about intruders.
Do field training out here sometimes. You just never know when duty's gonna call.
Isn't there something weird about Ben? There's like a serial killer vibe to him.
Kids these days have no respect for authority.
I was pretty pissed that you guys went in there. Even used the words breaking and entering.
Well, this is private property, and I did tell you, stay on the path, stay together. You don't listen, and when you don't listen, then bad things happen.
She could be lost, she could be hurt.
What did you do?
Sweetheart, I did it all for you.
You come here, disrespect my place.
Who are you?
Leaving so soon?
So I'm sorry I made you watch Desecrated, brother. I apologize. But as we were talking about off mic, I made you watch a movie a few episodes ago that was so bad, all other movies are going to seem better by contrast. But I think it's good to talk about a movie like Desecrated because for people who love slasher movies that are on the hunt for them, that, can see this cover, guy got a gas mask and a bow and arrow and a big old knife and, in the woods hunting for sport, maybe this could be cool. Michael Ironside, he's cool. We like Canadian actors, It presents a package that could be appealing. And if you see it, stay away. Just skip it. It's incredibly incredibly skippable. It's sort of the definition of a pointless movie, in that when all is said and done, nothing really happens in the movie. There's a crazy guy who is assigned to keep an eye on and be a sort of security officer for this property, which is private, which would be really, really boring. And because he has a terribly tragic backstory, he's kind of basically used this as an excuse to have his own personal hunting ground. And you wouldn't believe it, but a group of dumbass kids come down here and they're being all disrespectful, and they end up being hunted by this guy. First of all, the movie tries to play who's the killer. Like the audience is completely stupid. Right? Like, who else would it be?
In their defense, they do give up that angle pretty quickly, too.
But
as far as, okay, it's
clearly that guy. But they were playing it for a while. Like, who else would it be? Where are they? What's happening here? But we just talked about No One Lives, where I think that the movie kind of fell in love with its killer, started thinking that the killer was more cool than scary. I don't know that this movie ever manages to make this killer cool, but it does seem to be strangely sympathetic to his point of view. And the kids are so stunningly stupid in every decision that they make in this movie that it's hard to cheer for them either. So you can't cheer for, like, the good fun killer guy, and you can't cheer for the kids getting out of it. And Michael Ironside, much like, the celebrities in a lot of these movies, did a lot of his scenes completely separately, usually talking on a phone, and then he showed up for one day in which his character is killed off. I can watch a cheap horror movie. I can even look past sloppy performances and sloppy writing when you deliver in other certain ways. But I just kept on getting more and more frustrated with the movie. And for a movie that is, again, under 90 minutes long, it takes forever. It feels like it's 3 hours long. And, oh, by the way, it has no resolution at all. So it's completely pointless. There's not any particularly standout kills. There's not any particularly standout character, but it does take forever to get to its non-ending. So I don't know if it's coming across, but I was not super big on Desecrated. Where do you land, sir?
The same, and yet I will also say that I've watched much worse films. It's not the worst film I've seen. But it felt strangely pointless, and there's just something off and weird about it. You had one of the characters, her whole purpose of existing was to try and have sex with the killer. She was just attracted to him nonstop for some reason, but there was a weird thing because somebody died, or they found his lair, I guess, his shrine with some human remains in it.
Which we find out later is his daughter and his wife.
Yeah, and we don't find out really his backstory until 3/4 of the way through, I think, and then we get a flashback scene and kind of understand, this is why he's crazy, not that we really cared. But they go to the groundskeeper to report their findings, and then they go quadding, and it's just sort of like strange. And then so the killer, the ex-military guy, he tries to help them find out. Okay, well, let's go find your friends that have gone missing. And it's just this weird sort of like thing, like he actually, for a while, it seems like he's really trying to help them find their friends that he already killed. And then it's like they're off in the middle of the desert or wherever it was, and then he's, I'll be right back. And then he like runs back to the house because the cops showed up. So like, how close is this house? It seems like they've been walking for hours, and then the kids end up back at the house, and then they say, hey, what are you doing back here? Let's go find your friends. It's just really strange. Like, why didn't he just kill them all? Why with the big...
He clearly wanted to kill them all. He was clearly going to find an excuse to kill them all, but he had this... did you see The Black Phone? In the Black Phone movie, the killer always needed the kid to do something bad so that he could justify the punishment. I think there was something to that. They had to be disrespectful to him. They had to defy his property. Which, by the way, they happily do break into his place so they can have sex on his couch.
Like, what is it with horror movie kids that always want to break into a disgusting, dirty place to have sex? I mean, that's happened. This isn't the only movie in the 6 where that happens, right? Or like, I think the same thing in Lost After Dark.
But he was going to kill them anyway. Like, and my thing is like, does the movie side with him? Like, at the end, when he's beating the shit out of, like, the last male lead, and he punches him in the face again, and again, and again, and again, and a fucking again, and a fucking again, and then he stands up, and the guy's gurgling, and then he takes out a pistol, and casually shoots him in the face. And it feels like this is like an awesome victory moment in the movie. I'm like, are we supposed to be cheering for you? Like, this is the dramatic peak of the movie, as it turns out, because he walks away into the sunshine having, I guess, murdered his way to owning the property.
Yeah.
And are we supposed to be happy about this, or are we supposed to be scared? Like, again, I honestly don't know. The movie failed to make me understand what I was supposed to feel at the end of this.
Which is weird, because in these movies, we're not asking for a lot.
No.
But for it to just kind of not be interesting is kind of shameful, to not be able to put it together. I just wasn't invested in anything really with it.
No. I mean, if they'd made him just the naked villain, it could have almost worked, because I got to really hate that character. But I think, I don't know, the movie fell in love with that performance. Like, he was to be the villain, and I think that at some point that got lost. Like, we find this origin story, his wife and his kid were raped and murdered, and that sad backstory somehow justifies him doing all of these terrible things. Michael Ironside's character, the father who owns the property, is kind of a dick and selfish and rich, but he still rushes to try to save his daughter and hands over the lease to this fucking guy just to try to make him stop. Like, I really didn't have a good time with this, and I usually can find a way, even if the sloppy slasher movie with poor acting or like absolutely face-palmingly stupidly decisions, like a lot of times I'll make excuses for it because, come on, we're having goofy fun. And there was no goofy fun to this. It was so bland and at the same time weirdly angry at itself. I don't know. It was easily and announced itself almost right away to be the worst movie on this list. Like, there's an opening kill sequence which kind of tells you this is the vibe of the movie. This guy's hunting these people. He doesn't have any emotions of his own, and it's going to flinch when it comes to the kills, because that is another big fail I have to give to this movie. What's your standout kill?
I don't know. Someone got shot in the head.
Yeah.
You know, like, I can't think of one. I think
that we can't think of one.
No, there was too much guns, I guess, and you're just going to do a shotgun and then a little splash on the wall. It didn't really feel like a slasher movie. There was very little slashing, I guess, if you want to put it that way.
Maybe it was missold. I mean, it's closer to like the Hunting Humans, the Most Dangerous Game type of vibe. But it's packaged as a horror movie, not a thriller. But I don't think it's either. I think it just kind of wall-to-wall fails. I don't necessarily think everyone's in the wrong business. I think that they're capable actors. I think that, you know, again, it's the script here. Have a beginning, middle, or end. At least one of those. Good God. And if you're making a slasher movie or a horror movie, the kill sequences are kind of important. And yeah, a headshot is, I guess, shocking, but like... Or a guy steps on a mine and is left to his own fate. Like, it flinches when it comes to the gore, which I really feel if you're making a slasher movie, you just can't do that.
Well, yeah, if you're going to have somebody blow up by a mine, let's
see it.
Show some arms and legs. Every other movie on this list, if you had to pick one kill,
you could find one. Yeah.
This one you'd have to think I can't remember. Someone got a bow and arrow in the torso, I guess. I don't know. It's
when that sort of black kind of nerdy character got shot and all his blood sprayed on the girl. I mean, that was like, I guess I kind of cared about that character because he was starting slowly to be smart. But no. Is there anything else you want to say about Desecrated? I feel we pretty thoroughly cut it to pieces here.
Yeah, I don't don't think I got anything else to say about it. If you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all, maybe.
But whereas I said Lost After Dark didn't work for me, but it might work for you, I wouldn't say that for Desecrated. I could honestly say, save your time and just don't bother with it.
I agree.
Videotape all the girls' murders.
We got a crazy person here. We need help. What do you want?
You're dead.
Oh, God, help us.
He's not gonna stop.
What do we do now?
Die.
So, Laid to Rest, written and directed by Robert Hall, apparently R.I.P., poor guy, but he had a cult success with this and its sequel, and people were wanting more. I wonder if you can guess what movie kept on jumping into my mind as I was watching Laid to Rest.
Another movie was popping in your mind? I'm not sure.
Terrifier.
Oh, okay.
In that this movie feels like a proof of concept in a character, that it was done on a very low budget, that it had a focus on the character and the violence, but almost no background. Like, we see that this guy's killing people, but we don't know anything about him. We don't even know anything about our female protagonist because she has movie amnesia, which means she can't forget she can't remember certain things. It's got kind of this... It's got a sloppiness to it, but it's also kind of charming, and you are kind of impressed by how big they go with the gore and the kills. And I think that Chrome Skull has kind of a striking visage. I don't think it's competitive with Terrifier. I think there's a reason that Terrifier, lifted off where this one didn't. But honestly, when you look at it as the proof of concept, and this is what my killer looks like, and this is how he goes about his killing, and that's pretty much all this movie has to offer. The first Terrifier movie is very similar to Laid to Rest. Maybe it's because we reviewed Terrifier 3 for the Christmas episode, and that was in my mind too, but I feel like if you could look past the flaws in the original Terrifier and get off on it, then you can look past the flaws in Laid to Rest and get off on it. The kills are 100% there for you. There's a cool looking killer. The script is a mess. The script is stupid. The characters are running around in circles so that they can set up the next kill sequence. And it like, to almost an infuriating degree at times. But the movie hits those check boxes that we've been talking about consistently enough. And it's absolutely a sound enough proof of concept. Sure, I don't know anything about Chrome Skull after this movie, but I kind of want to. I know that there's a Chrome Skull 2, and I would like to know how they're going to bring him back to life after how very dead he seemed to be at the end of Chrome Skull 1. I like the blurred line in that, like, is he a dude or is he supernatural? He does go through the trouble of patching himself up, but a lot of those wounds seem like they would be significantly more serious. So I think that the movie kind of is like, what do you think of this guy? Do we have a franchise here? It's like a proof of concept. And I say, yes, successful enough. But in that slasher movie way that I keep talking about, there's some problems here. Like, there's some rickety acting and some really questionable writing. But they're going to deliver on those kills, and that's what we're here for. And Chrome Skull sort of, like, made his play. He might have not made it to the marquee of the great slashers of all time, but he's out there, he's part of a conversation, and who knows where it might have gone if, things had played out differently. So, I like Laid to Rest enough. It's maybe a guilty thing because it's uncomplicated and basically run entirely on violence and stupidity, but I had fun with it, and fun is enough. Where do you land on Laid to Rest, brother?
Well, it's interesting that you bring up. I'm thinking about that now. You're talking about Terrifier and Art the Clown as a comparable, and now I can kind of see it, because with Terrifier, the first one, and even the second one, you get sort of hints that there's something more, but we're not going to really explain everything. There might be a part 2, and you'll get more. Like the first one is just a murderous clown. Not to review that movie again, but we find out there's a supernatural angle at the end. And now, I want to see part 2 to find out why. This one, there's something like, why has he got the video camera? Why can he not talk? Why does he only speak by texting?
Yeah.
And, why is this? Why does he always freak out when his mask comes off? He has to hide his face.
We just don't know.
What's the deal with the mortuary? Like, why is he hiding bodies there? There seems to be some deal with the guy that runs the funeral home. So it's almost like, okay, they're setting something up here. I don't really understand a lot of it. A lot of it doesn't really make sense. Maybe this is going to be a franchise. It'll be explained later. So I guess that way I can kind of let go of some of my questions. The thing that takes me out of it a bit are the things that don't make sense that way. And you're right, they literally run in circles. There's like 3 locations. There's the morgue, that one guy's house, another guy's house, and then the supermarket. And they go back to these locations repeatedly.
Again, it's a problem in any slasher movie, but if any character runs in one direction for long enough, they're out of danger. And nobody ever does that in this movie. They never even fucking talk about it. They just keep them.
They did at one point ask that, can't we drive any faster? But he had the car like Justin Saward's governor on it, so his mother couldn't go over 45 or whatever because she had a lead foot.
And the other town is so far away.
This is why we can't outdrive the killer, because we can't go very fast. And
but even if you have to walk 50 kilometers in a field in the middle of the night by yourself, isn't that better than continually putting yourself in the path of this killer? Yeah. And if we have time to ask ourselves this question, the movie's doing something wrong. There's also just scenes where the kills happen and the other characters stand and watch the kills happen instead of helping the person. Like the nerdy kid who gets all that shit shoved into his ear and his face starts ballooning out, and everybody's there watching it happen. They're just staring at it, and it takes a while.
That's a creative kill. And you mentioned the kills. Yeah, they do not skip out on any of the kills in this one. Nothing is off camera, and every kill is vicious and bloody. And if you like that kind of stuff, they do that well in this movie.
No.
I'm not sure. It looks all practical. I'm not sure if there's some, I'm sure there's maybe enhanced with some digital, but I think the kills look good. It's a messy picture and painful and kind of mean, sort of some of the kills. Like the knife that our killer Chrome Skull uses, it's like a Rambo knife. It's got the serrated edges on one side, and it's big and and it's a beautiful weapon.
And it keeps going farther than you explain it to. These 2 secondary characters drive into the situation, and the obnoxious boyfriend goes to investigate Chrome Skull's vehicle. And he comes back to the car to talk to his girlfriend, and all of a sudden, boom! He's got a knife in his face, and you think, wow, good kill. Oh no, they're not done at all. Then, Chrome Skull comes behind him and drags the knife up through his face, and his face falls free, and it's like, holy shit. When he slashes the girl in the abdomen, you get the feeling like she's got an injury, but she's still running. But when she looks down and sees the seriousness of the injury that she's withstood, it's all over. And again, for the stuff that wasn't working, that the teeth and tissue, it may not be a proud thing to admit, but the special effects in the kill sequences kind of compensated for the ludicrous stupidity of all of the actors. Lena Headey is in this movie very, very briefly, but I wanted to talk about Kevin Gage, the guy who's playing Tucker. Looks like a wrestler dude. It was driving me crazy because I feel like I'd known him from something. Like, who are you, dude? He played Wayne Grove in Heat, the Michael Mann crime epic with Robert De Niro and Al Pacino, and he's kind of one of the big bads of that movie, and it's all in his voice. He looks totally different, and I don't know, I think that guy's capable. I wish he was in a little bit of a better movie. I wish his character made more sense. Lena Headey's a good actress, but other than a so-so American accent, she's just there to say, hi, here's a named person, and now I'm dead. Like...
Yeah, and her death was nasty as well.
Yeah.
It's just something about this knife, the way it goes into people's heads, and when he pulls it out, it's not just blood, but there's sticky stuff. There's, it's really nasty.
Visceral debris.
Another actor in this, Sean Whalen, he's another one where we've seen him. He was the nerdy guy in the computer, and I was trying to think, where do I know this guy from? And he's a very familiar face, and I racked my brain, and of course he's you think of People Under the Stairs.
That's right.
He's one of the people under the stairs. That's right. That's that guy. But so yeah, there's some kind of familiar faces that you do see. Kevin Gage, you mentioned. I liked his character. I thought he did actually all right. He seemed like he was going to take this movie seriously, and he was going to give it his all.
I don't think he was slumming it. I just think that he's a good enough actor. He might have deserved a better character than he was given.
Yeah, I think maybe the worst performance is probably our lead girl, Bobby Sue Luther. I'm not sure if she's been in anything else. I believe that she was the girlfriend of the director.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
I believe, I think that they had some, maybe she's his Sherry Moon Zombie or something.
I attributed it to the amnesia plot line where, like, all of her stuff that she said didn't make sense. She remembered who she was and her name and, like, what a bathroom was, but she didn't remember what a morgue was or how she ended up there or what the... Like, it was highly selective amnesia, and it's very, like, lame movie amnesia. I've talked about it before on the podcast, but, like... So I didn't think she was strong, but I felt like she was dealt a terrible hand as far as, like, the dialogue that she had to choke down, so...
She didn't remember words for things. Like, she was in the coffin, but she called it a death box.
Yeah. I was where the dead people are instead of the morgue.
They opened up the trunk looking for a weapon. She says, grab that tire stick.
Yeah.
That's not what it's called. But she goes, I don't remember the name for things because of my head.
Well, you remember the name for remembering names of things in your head. So... I don't know. Yeah. Again, you have to let go of it if you're going to enjoy it. And again, if you want to enjoy it for the teeth and tissue, the violence, that's where this thing delivers. And like I said, as a proof of concept, more than a full-length beginning and middle and end. I complained that Desecrated didn't have a beginning, middle, and end, but it didn't entertain me in the midst of it. And I mean, the killer's defeated at the end of this movie. There is an, pretty conclusive, we can roll credits at this point,
Oh. And then, though, the very ending, after that, what the hell? You know what I'm talking about? The killer's dead, and she's the last one, and there's another survivor from the grocery store or the gas station. And they go in the car, and they have this weird conversation. It's like, so what do we do now? It's like, well, my friend's in there. It's okay, I left a note. Okay, where should we go? How about they go to Atlanta? Atlanta, that sounds nice. And then they just drive off.
Or we could call the police. We could call the police, maybe report all of the horrible murder that we were just witness to. Maybe get some counseling. Maybe go to the hospital.
So, I mean, I guess that's not the actor's fault, but that's not an ending.
It's not a smart movie, Scott. It's not a Scott. It's not a Scott movie. It's not a smart movie. I would never say that it was, but I think it has enough going on that I can recommend it before I can recommend some of these other ones. Anyway.
Yeah, it's got a killer with a really cool mask. I think the killer looks good. There's so many questions about him though that we're never really going to get to know. In this movie, because he's dressed nicely as well. He fixes his own wounds. He's got something going on. And why does he not kill this girl when he has the chance multiple times? I mean, we start the movie, he has her locked in a coffin. But why? Why didn't he kill her? Why did he put her in a coffin and leave? Maybe he had to go pee or something. I don't know.
Because Chrome Face was her father, presumably. I don't know. And I guess we'll never know.
Yeah. But if you're just going to let it go, don't worry about all the details. Just have a fun time watching a scary guy kill a bunch of people. Then it's going to definitely work.
And
don't ask questions.
Yeah, and it moves. It doesn't have the pacing problems that some of the other ones do, too. Like, yeah, the characters are running in circles making bad decisions, but the next kill sequence is not far away at any given time.
No, and they do make some good decisions. They do eventually go to a police station. Unfortunately, somehow Chrome Skull beat them there and killed all the cops.
Set a trap and everything. yeah, no, it's silly. Like I keep saying, it's not smart, but I was entertained by it. I'm not proud of this endorsement, but there it is. In a Violent Nature, 2024. This is a very recent slasher movie. I like to give spoiler warnings, so if you haven't seen In a Violent Nature, in order to discuss it, Scott and I are going to go into full spoilers. I remember talking to you about it, asked you if you'd seen it. You said yes, and I said I have a lot to say about it, and you said so did you. It's interesting, like I've been going, a theme about this episode is like, I'm not sure how to interpret this. I'm not sure, like, I wasn't sure if Lost After Dark was actually deliberately being funny until it was eventually deliberately being funny. I'm not sure if In a Violent Nature is sort of like this postmodern disassembling of what it is we find appealing about slasher movies. If it's some kind of smart and art-minded, assessment of the psychology that makes people like you and I enjoy these movies. Or if the director just played a lot of the Friday the 13th video game and got obsessed with these POV walking sequences of Jason Voorhees. Johnny, our killer in this movie, is very much of the realm of Jason Voorhees. He was wronged, he was murdered, and when people desecrate his grave or steal his trinkets, he comes back to life and he will kill the shit out of anyone until he gets his satisfaction and presumably goes back to sleep until the next round of kills. That is all very familiar. What's not familiar is the approach that, for the most part, with very few exceptions, we stay with Johnny, the supernatural killer, at all times. Even when he's walking through the woods randomly, even when he backpedals to go get a hatchet that he left in a tree stump, like, we stay with him, we follow him, and the movie doesn't help us with creepy score, all the sounds diegetic. Wet footprints, birds chirping, crunching on the ground, and it's a 93-minute movie, and I would guess 15 minutes or so of the movie is just dedicated to those kinds of shots. It almost seems to be testing your patience. But we also have some of the craziest kill sequences that we've seen in a while. And considering you and I have talked about the Terrifier franchise, it kind of puts it in interesting company. But then I go back to the question of why. Why are the kills handled this way? The first two kills that we see, definitely the first kill we see, is quite restrained. Johnny's hand is reaching towards this guy as he's cowering, and then we smash cut, and his hand is soaking wet, and he's reaching for something else, and we pretty much understand that something terrible happened to that guy. In another case, a woman disappears under the water, and then her body just floats to the surface. So you think, oh, so they're also being pretty restrained in how they're not giving us this payoff. Until all of a sudden they start giving us this payoff to an almost over-the-top, ridiculous, this is a different movie. Like, we went from subtle, spooky, disturbing kills to an over-the-top, hatchet, reanimator kill. And why? Why did we make that decision? And again, I wrestle with it. It doesn't seem like it's personal with Johnny except for in a couple of cases, but I understand why. The sheriff character that we're introduced to apparently put Johnny back in the ground last time. So Johnny really takes his time killing that sheriff character. Like, it's a brutal and seemingly personal event. But the other people just seem to be there. So is he a cunning stalker and slasher? Is he just a monstrous supernatural thing that doesn't think things out? It seems from kill sequence to kill sequence, it's just whatever they do to do this kill sequence. He kind of lacks a definition as a just other than I'm going to kill these people in the coolest way that filmmakers can come up with. Do I like the movie? Absolutely. I do like the movie. I will endorse the movie. I think that it's kind of taking the slasher genre in a different direction while kind of backing the uptick that Terrifier seems to be asking for in our violence. But what I want to talk to you about is it about anything? Are we being confronted? Are they trying to do a funny games thing where they're shaming us for liking this? Why is this approach used and why is it effective? So that's a thumbs up review, but again, a little bit wrestling with it.
Myself, I really liked this movie. I found I liked it more the second time I watched it.
Agreed.
The first time, I didn't know what I was getting into. So the first time that I was watching Johnny walking, and then continually walking, and then it fades into another scene of him walking, and I think I out loud probably said, what am I watching? What is this, the movie? Is this what it's going to be? I didn't really understand what was happening. And then it was just not traditional. And I think going in the second time, nothing about the movie is really traditionally done. It goes against everything that you're supposed to do in these movies. There's a formula. There's the way that you're supposed to do this. And they go against all of it. You know, starting with the 4:3, it's not in widescreen either on purpose. And you're thinking, okay, sometimes movies will do that for the intro. But it's just framed differently. I definitely had that idea of, it felt like Friday the 13th, the game.
Yeah.
You know, because the camera's behind Jason and you are walking a lot in the woods. And it had that. And you hear characters start talking off camera. And as he gets closer, you hear them a bit more clear. And again, it's sort of video game-ish that way. And so the first time it was a little uneasy because it was not familiar. And second time going in, I started just really to appreciate the difference because they took a different approach. Everyone says it's kind of from his point of view perspective. I mean, it's not. That made me think more like the Maniac remake.
Right.
That's point of view. It's not like...
It's point of view in that we stay with Johnny for the most part. There's only a very few scenes where we stray away from his presence.
Yeah, I think there's two really, and I think we got to talk about one later, but that's the ending. The other one is probably the campfire you're thinking of, right?
Yeah.
And that one I give a pass to because we see that conversation because Johnny sees it.
Yeah.
We only see and hear what he sees and hears. And I really find it kind of cool in a way that there's a horror movie going on in the background. You know, a traditional Friday the 13th sequel.
Yeah.
But we're not seeing that part of the movie. We're just seeing what Jason does in between kills.
Oh, I think you mean Johnny, but yeah.
No, but like if it was a Friday the 13th movie,
absolutely,
right, that would be like what happens after.
I also picked up on the second time. I think his ability to hear his victims is part of his power. Like, he can hear those two girls' conversation across the lake crystal clearly. He can hear where his victims are, and that will change his direction of walking. Like, I think that's part of his abilities. He can just sort of home in on where the teenagers are doing their teenage stuff.
And it's almost like, I heard someone's, like a reverse jump scare movie. Because you know where he is all the time.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're gonna, but you're almost like, it's just so different. And I like that they challenged me and gave me something new and introduced something that I haven't really thought of or watched this way before.
Yeah.
Like I kind of mentioned, there's a horror movie going on in the background, and that's what I mean. It's like a traditional teenagers all getting together, and they're having a party. There is some sort of dynamic going on with the group because you hear snippets of the conversations, but if Johnny's not there, we're not going to hear the next part. So they take a picture at a campfire, and apparently they see Johnny in the background because they talk about it later, but we don't really see that scene where they're talking about it, or one of the kids has like a dead dad, and they're going together for him. there's some sort of awkwardness between a couple of the people. We don't really get all that backstory, and we realize it's not really important. We don't really need to care about these kids in a way.
Well,
because some people complain about we're seeing so much footage of Johnny just walking, and I can see people getting bored of it, saying, well, why we're just watching this guy walk for so long? We're not getting any movement or what's happening. The alternative, if we don't see him walking, is we're going to have these kids partying and saying stupid dialogue.
Exactly.
Or
the same.
Right? So,
the same boring shit that we have to sit through in every single slasher movie. Are these two going to get together? They're going to bully this character until he leaves, and when that character has disappeared, they're going to think he just left because he was, being put upon. They learn the origin of Johnny, all that in the background. But yes, that to us is tedious. Or should be tedious. It should be as tedious as just watching this guy walk through the woods, right? It follows the same sort of slow first act of the slasher movie, because he's got to figure out who he wants to kill and how he wants to go about his business, and he doesn't want to do it all right away. Baby steps, Take a few of the people off in the fringes first, and then really make your presence loudly known. And sometimes it was really calculated. I thought it was cool when he put the stick in the car to set the horn off, and then he just did a loop around the house. So when the guy came out to check out the car horn, he'd just walk up behind him. But again, it seemed very conscious and calculated. So in that scene, it seems like this is a vicious, calculating hunter. Whereas in other scenes, it's just a monster that will rip your guts out. I'm wondering if the sequel might not answer a lot of our questions as to whether or not this is a movie that's sort of challenging its audience or just feeding it what it imagines that it wants. Either way, I think it works, but I think it's more interesting as a sort of challenge. Why do we like these killings, and why do we like it as much or more when we're siding, or at least in the point of view of the killer instead of the victims? Because the movie still works. It still does everything we want a slasher movie to do.
Yeah, I think it's because it's different, and I can see it being really polarizing. A lot of people I could see, even 50-50, I like it or I hate it, and I can understand that. Myself, I really dug it, especially like I said, the second time. You mentioned the background about Johnny and how the characters learn about it, kind of off camera, and they're finding their friends off camera while we follow Johnny as he's walking one location to the other, and they find out how to kill him again, and they set a trap for him, but we don't even know what the trap is because it's like we're with Johnny. I just found it kind of neat that way, that we don't really know what the characters are doing, and I realized this time that it's funny because this is a part 3 of this series,
right?
Because in the first part, I guess is
the origin story.
Part, we meet that sheriff or park ranger, I guess.
Right.
Or was he a sheriff? I can't remember. But anyways, when he sees Johnny, he's like, "Oh, you remember me? This sheriff is in part 2 of this franchise."
That's
he
right.
puts him down the same way his dad did in the first one. I mean, there is no part 1 and part 2, but
in
traditionally,
the lore,
this is part 3 of a trilogy. And we don't know the background about the power of this locket. Why does this keep his body at rest? We start this movie knowing nothing. But if you watch the part 1 and 2 that don't exist, you would know all the background. And I don't know. I kind of think it's really a neat idea.
I think the one clumsy bit of exposition that I have hard time with is when Johnny looks at himself in the mirror and he sees that vision of his dad giving him the locket. It just felt like they had no other way they could think of to give us that information. And I honestly feel like we would have intuited that he was after the locket. Like, they probably didn't need that. But they just did that little bit of hand-holding. The other elephant in the room that I don't think we've adequately discussed is the high quality of the kills in this movie. Like, yeah,
we got to get after that, for sure. There are some really, like you said, the first kill is kind of off screen. I like the way they handled it, though, with the hand reaching for the guy screaming, and then cuts to now his hand is just dripping with red.
Yeah.
But we do walk by the body again, and then you see his arm, laying far away from the body and think, oh, shoot, okay. It was kind of a neat first kill, but we're not going to blow our load too early, but we're going to show you that this guy has some power. But when they do the full... There's a lot of long shots in this, too.
Yeah.
It's almost like they put the camera down in one spot and they go at it. Is there a kill that really stood out in this movie for you?
Well, the yoga kill, which on the second part, again, it could be played different ways. I don't know why that kill was so vicious, but the second time I watched it, she had that line about, well, we're going to go up the hill and stretch myself out, and then you can come up the hill and maybe I'll stretch you out. And it's like, oh, but Johnny really does, quote, stretch her out, doesn't he? Was that deliberate? But
I think so.
That
I didn't
kill,
catch that to the second one either.
That kill is too far in a way for me. How does this woman even keep her feet? How is she still standing while he turns her inside out? Like, what are we even looking at? I mean, full
severe shot.
Yeah, full bars for like definitely going all out, but on a movie that had been restrained up to this point, we get a close-up on the vertebrae separating in her neck, and they forced her head through the hole that was created in her abdomen, and then roll her down the hill. Apparently, when they shot it, they were supposed to roll all the way down the hill, but they thought it was funny that the body didn't make it down the hill. What did that character do to deserve this level of kill? Like, oh my. And again, this is a kill out of the Hatchet franchise, which is fine. You can do that. Like, even the guy who's standing by the tree and he gets the top of his head taken off, like, that's over the top, but not to the same cartoonish level. I think part of it is for that sequence, they got the crew that worked on Psycho Goreman to help with that kill. And they deal in a different type of violence. But I think that for me, it would be better if it was at least grounded in a consistent reality as in what a human body can withstand, you know? For me, the kill of the movie is a guy getting his head smashed with a rock. All in one long take as he's trying to crawl away, and we see Johnny slowly pick up the rock, slowly close the distance, and then an unbroken shot just obliterate this guy's skull. And I was like, I kept on expecting it to cut away at the last second, and boy did it ever not. And like, that was shocking, and wow. And again, the guy that was trying to drag him away, he threw his hatchet off of the screen, and we stopped hearing any more dialogue from that guy, so we kind of figure out what happened. And eventually, as he's catching up to the crawler, he passes the corpse of the... Again, sometimes it's restrained, and other times it's so ridiculously not restrained that it's like, what are we doing? And I think some of these answers will come to us in the next movie as to what he leans towards or like where he's going with this. I'm hoping he's not trying to shame us. I'm hoping it's like a conversation or just like a different take on an old sort of reliable formula. And on that respect, I like it a lot. The kills, even if it was shot straightly and we didn't go with this POV, the movie would be worthy of recommending just for the innovation of some of these kill sequences. Like, it's very, very well done. So, bravo.
Well, I didn't realize they were doing a sequel. You mentioned that to me, and I was cautious. But after you said that the first time, I thought, I don't know if you can do this again.
Yeah.
Like, because now this is just maybe making one thing. Do we want to sit through another movie of Johnny walking?
What more do you bring to it other than upping the gore, right?
And are we going to change styles a bit? And one thing occurred to me that I got kind of excited about, even though I know it's not, an idea, but the sequel idea. How about a remake of this movie, but this time traditional slasher style from the kids' point of view,
right?
Full soundtrack and everything. I thought that would just be a neat sort of take on it. Almost like instead of calling it that one, would just be called Violent Nature.
Yeah.
It's not a sequel. I don't know. It's ideas or a prequel, maybe make the part 2 now, and then do the
work backwards
trilogy in reverse.
Yeah.
Maybe a found footage, because you gotta do something different with it, because this can't just be. There's something unique about this style. I could see maybe doing a found footage version or something. But I don't know how you handle the sequel, because you can't just do this. I don't know if you can get away with doing the same thing twice.
In slasher movies, usually you can get away with doing the same thing twice. So we'll see. But again, it's also, as you had pointed out, a polarizing movie. So half of the audience probably won't be coming back for the sequel, right? But the people who like it will like it a lot. Will it snowball the way Terrifier did, or has he sort of split the audience too dramatically? The other thing that makes me believe that he has a vision that's real about this, and it's not just about making a first-person video game slasher, he shot this movie in its entirety, basically, wasn't happy with it, and reshot the entire movie again. What we saw is his second shot at it. So, I mean, I'm supporting Canadian talent. I support the slasher genre. Please, if you haven't seen In a Violent Nature, even though we've spoiled it, I don't think we can really spoil the experience of watching it. And I also want to hit something you said earlier, too. It was so much better the second time I watched it. Like, the first time I was watching it, I was so not sure about what I was into that, like, my guard was up the whole time. I was kind of judging the movie. The second time I let go of all of that and just sort of looked at the technique and how they went about setting these things up. And I had a lot more fun with it. So,
yeah, I think the first time I started to relax a bit after he was dragging that guy's body back to the ranger station with the headphones playing.
Yeah.
And he's got headphones on his severed head, and the battery starts wearing out, and so the music gets a little bit slower, and he throws his head through the window. And I think I kind of relaxed. At that point, I kind of, okay, this is what we're doing, and I kind of got into it a bit more. Yeah, I've heard something. I like that there was no soundtrack as well. It almost made it feel a little bit more real. I mean, the soundtrack was nature, as you mentioned. There's a lot of birds chirping, crunching of leaves, just the sounds of outdoors. I've even heard some people say that their opinion is it's not from the killer's point of view, it's from nature's point of view, and that's what the title means, violent nature. Because you do, when you look at it again the second time, there's shots from within the trees or really close to a tree trunk or something, and you see Johnny walk across. It's sort of also an interesting take on it, but I'm not sure if that was intended or not with the title, but
there it was.
Now, we got to eventually get to the ending, since we've ruined everything else for this movie. But that's the big time when the point of view does for sure change.
Yeah.
At no point in the movie is it anything like the ending, where we have our final person getting slaughtered, an axe to the face, probably 500 times. Johnny just doesn't let up. He just
that was crazy.
And so we have the final girl then running away, gone mad at that point through the dark forest, and she's been running for a while, and you still hear that whack, whack, probably just in her mind, just being traumatized. But now for the first time, we're not with Johnny, we're following somebody else, behind her. And she gets picked up from a truck on the side of the road, and that's where most movies would end.
Nope, not this one.
Because that's kind of traditional. That's the end of the slasher movie. Either everybody dies or one person gets away, and then it's the end. You get picked up by a truck, and I'm thinking Texas Chainsaw Massacre, right? Sally gets in the truck, and it's over. And she's insane, gone. But now it's almost like this extra scene that we get, and it's a strange scene because it's inside a truck, a lot of long takes again. She's picked up by, interestingly, a girl that was in Friday the 13th Part 2. She was that girl that tried to hook up with the boy in the wheelchair.
Right.
But anyways, I found that out after, so that's a neat connection. But there's a long conversation they have in that truck, and I'm not sure where it was going, but I found it really interesting. I can see a lot of people hating that scene as well. But I think that's the one time I felt a little uneasy and scared in the whole movie. Not scared, but because you're looking around, where is he? And
why are we still here? It should be over. I think it mostly works. There's this long monologue about a bear that this lady gives to her in the car, this catatonic, traumatized woman. And you keep waiting for this other shoe to drop. And I think that's what it's about. Is this old lady crazy? Is she related to Johnny? Is she helping Johnny in some way? Why haven't the credits rolled? And then she stops the car and we've framed her and we can see the woods behind her. And is Johnny going to somehow come rushing out of the woods here? But no, I think it's just an epilogue. I think they consciously took it farther past the point than we always take it in the slasher movies. Like you say, she should have gotten the car should have driven away, and the camera should have stayed where she was, and the car would hit the horizon, and credits would roll. But no, they stay with her and her trauma. But I think the handover is that. Now she's in a, quote, violent nature, in this, like, shocked state that she has locked herself in. I think the second she drops that necklace and leaves it on the canister, Johnny is satisfied, but she is fucked up for the rest of her life. But did they have to make that much of a meal out of it? Certainly not, but it was interesting. They keep on doing the not expected thing from a slasher movie, and you keep thinking this isn't really working, except for then it did. So I'm really impressed. Yeah, we're at 25 minutes on this review. Is there... we might want to try and...
How long?
We're at 25 minutes on this review, so I just want to try and maybe wrap it up here.
Well, that's how long they spent after Johnny died, before the movie ended, so
right?
It's only fair that we talk that long.
No, it's worth talking about, for sure.
Yeah, because, you're right, the movie ends then, and they stop the bleed. There's that moment when they open the truck door, and there's a long shot of the woods where she's up there, and I found myself, even the second viewing, just looking all over the woods. Where is he? Is he out there? But they've been driving long enough. He shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the only time in the movie we don't know where Johnny is, and it does create a little bit of tension. Like, he's there, but he's not.
Yeah.
And I think of movies like Pulp Fiction, where we're talking to Vincent, and they're talking about Royale with cheese, and it's the scenes in between the scenes you would normally have in a movie.
Yeah.
It's like we don't see the epilogue usually. What happened after?
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing. I just find it kind of a really interesting movie to watch for those reasons. Just what's different, and a lot of people I could see hating it. Don't try and piss me off. Some people maybe feel like they're doing this stuff just to piss me off because they know they're not supposed to.
Right.
In this one, I enjoyed the challenge it gave me.
Well, that was quite the conversation about slashers. I wonder what the body count. I should have, got all the information so we could list how many people we watched die for this episode of RanknReview. It sounds like we were pretty simpatico in a lot of these reviews. I don't think we were disagreeing a lot, so I'm interested to hear what your rank is. Please, what was your least favorite of these 6 slasher movies, and why was it Desecrated?
So, Desecrated is only ranked number 6 because it couldn't be at 7.
That's right.
That's my reason why Desecrated is at number 6. It's just a forgettable movie. I think it ended up really, I'd probably call it more of a thriller vibe than a horror as far as what they were going for. But then again, it wasn't especially thrilling either, so I don't know. And then the meanness kind of stops after that. Everything else I had some enjoyment with, of varying degrees. And it was number 5 was, I'll put Lost After Dark. Fun enough, but I think we mentioned it on that, where it didn't really slip too much. I think their attempts at, hey, look how 80s we are. Hey, look, there's a missing reel in your DVD for some reason.
Yeah.
It just didn't. Those kind of things turned me off a bit. But there it goes. 3 and 4 I had some tough back and forth with, but number 4 is No One Lives. I enjoyed it. I was surprised by it. I didn't know what I was getting into with that. Definite fun violence, and for a while I had that at number 3, but at last minute I changed it to number 4. I put Laid to Rest above it in number 3, just because the level of knife violence with that blade, I think even with the unanswered questions, I I think I'll probably revisit Laid to Rest a bit more. So that's maybe why.
It brings the gore. We're not here for no gore, so.
No, and I think there's questions with No One Lives to the backstory, like why actually is he a killer? You know, same thing with Laid to Rest has questions. Well, so does No One Lives, and I think that maybe the No One Lives questions maybe took me out of it a bit more. Yeah, spoiler alert. Obviously, I enjoyed In a Violent Nature probably more than I should, but yeah, it was. Some of those kills were so... Even the second viewing, that yoga kill, I just said, holy shit. Like, I knew it was coming, but it still blew me away. And you talk about that rock in the face.
Yeah.
That's... I don't know how they did that, because that's a long take. I don't see any cuts, and the guy's crawling away screaming. Well done. Yeah. That is some really good stuff.
Brutal.
And almost kind of at an unfair advantage going in is, unfortunately, I don't know if it's unfair or if it's just me that's not being fair, but I'm going to put The Burning at number one. It's your 80s slasher, and that's they get an advantage to me, and so it's going to get number one.
You just made Lee Beckman cry.
Oh my goodness.
Lee Beckman.
Did I take the crown?
Lee Beckman had been the champion, and he doubled down on his champion just a couple episodes before this. But you and I have just absolutely matched. I felt it coming. As we were doing these reviews. I feel like Desecrated, pardon me. I can't even be bothered to remember the name of the movie. Desecrated loudly and obviously announced itself as the worst. And for me, The Burning is just such the quintessential, like, texture of a traditional slasher movie. It's like the traditional slasher movie, maybe second only to the Friday the 13th or Halloween franchises. Like it lives there.
It hit everything right. It does everything right?
Yeah. So those are the ones that I'm passionate about, the top and bottom for sure. But we absolutely lined up. Lost After Dark, again, like, what are you? Pick a lane. Find an identity. Because if you picked either one of those identities, and I knew which one it was, I think I like your movie more, like right away. It's not enough to be set in the 80s and have references. You also have to have your own distinct personality. But they do have good kills in it and the other ones. You're right about the middle ground. I think that No One Lives is probably technically a better made and acted movie on almost every standard. But I think that Laid to Rest is such a solid sort of proof of concept, and it definitely brings the gore to a level that, like, the real trolls out there, like, you can really get into the nasty kills. That's definitely where it pays off. These two are really close in that they both have real good strengths and real good flaws. Like, if I could tie them, like, I would, but I think this time through I had more... I knew what I was getting into with Laid to Rest, so I think I again, it was graded on that curve. But no, I agree with you. In Violent Nature is number 2 because, damn, son, like those kills. And I appreciate like that they consciously went a different direction with the slasher movie while still checking off all those boxes that we were talking about. Like it really did its job very well. And some people might find it boring, but even those people who found it boring, I encourage you to revisit it if you're in a mood for a slasher movie again, because I think it appreciates. But yeah, like I said, the Burning was number 1. That raft sequence is an indelible imprint on my young brain. It felt like I was watching something that I shouldn't be watching in the best ways. It's another interesting thing of my journey with slasher movies. When I was a kid, I actually took comfort in the first half of the slasher movies before they got really, really like violent and scary, because it wasn't too bad yet. When the scares and the kills happened, I would get really, really scared. Now I don't get scared anymore. In fact, I get impatient for the violence to start going. Slasher movies have turned me into a sick little monkey. But
well, suck on that, Lee.
Congratulations, Rank and Review King champion, Mr. Scott Lehman. Lee is so upset about this. Is it like he wants me to tell him ahead of time? He doesn't want to hear it when it happens. I love how invested he is in this, and how much you are invested in slasher movies. Do you want to give out some Jerry's?
I think that'd be great.
Traditional. Boom. We haven't done Jerry's in a while, but we kind of retired it from the podcast. But when we're doing slasher movies, it really seems, appropriate. I came up with a few. I have a WTF, best kill sequence, and best killer sequence. But if you want to add to these, by all means. But as you are the new champion, I will allow you to crown the winners. Fair?
Okay.
So, starting with, let's go with the best killer, okay? We have Crowley, Victor Crowley from The Burning. We have Joe, the weird beardo dude from Lost After Dark. We have the crazy security guy from Desecrated, who's not going to win. We have Chrome Skull from Laid to Rest. We have Johnny from In a Violent Nature. And we have Luke Evans' character from No One Lives. I can't even remember his name right now off the top of my head. Who do you think was Sorry?
That's because he doesn't have a name.
There you go.
In the credit, they just call him the driver.
The driver. There you go. That's usually suspect to me. But who was your favorite killer?
I think the best killer. I think I got to go with Johnny.
Yeah.
Because he's the Jason Voorhees. He's. I don't know how you can stop him. Everyone else in here you can stop.
We got good variety to his kills too.
Yeah, Cropsy gets. He got a nice axe to the face. I don't know if he can come back from that. He's just a guy with burnt up. Chrome Skull's pretty cool. He's got that kind of just kind of cool killer look to him. He's slow. He just stares at you, and he's going to kill you no matter what. But I just love that physicality of Johnny. Just the way he looks like he's been through a few movies already.
Yeah.
Once he comes out of the ground. I like that character.
Fair enough. I really like when he uses, like you said, the head to break a window or a body to break open a door. It's pretty cold-hearted. Kill sequence. We have... I'm going to give... I feel we have to mention the yoga sequence because it's the most memorable of the movie. But I also want to include, if I can double nominate In a Violent Nature, the double kill of the guy... One guy gets the hatchet in the head, the other guy gets the rock in the face. That whole prolonged top-down sequence shot, I just think was brilliantly done. So I'm giving a double nomination. That might be cooking the books, but I apologize. I couldn't even think of something for Desecrated, so I just said the opening sequence because 3 people get killed in quick succession in that opening sequence, and it suggests a much faster pace for the movie that actually exists. The double kill in Laid to Rest. There's the guy gets the knife in the face, and then his face peeled off, and then his girlfriend tries to run away, but leaves her intestines behind as she's going. And of course, I feel like we should probably talk about the raft sequence in The Burning. And I guess I don't know what you call the best kill sequence, but in Lost After Dark, I went with the eyeball kill, the windowsill, as my nomination. So those are my nominations for best kill or kill sequence, because in a couple of these, more than one person are dying. But
yeah, I think first I would take the eye one out just because it's done as a tribute, I think.
Okay, fair enough.
It seemed very hey, I really like Zombie when they did this, so I'm going to kind of do it my own way. I'll add another nominee in there. Chrome Skull's face melting death.
Oh yeah, Chrome Skull himself.
yeah. When he's starting to peel that mask off after the chemicals are, oh man, that is so slimy and gross. And then of course the baseball bat to the face after. I'd throw a nomination in that one. And the other ones, you mentioned them all as well. That knife through the guy's side of his face in Laid to Rest is my favorite kill of that movie.
Yeah.
It's so yucky just because it's sloppy. I like the sloppiness of it. because it's like that. He meant to throw it in his temple probably, but he missed.
Yeah.
And now it's a little bit grosser.
Now I have to finish this.
But if I'm going to give a winner, it's got to go to one of those violent nature kills. I think. Man, it's everyone talks about the yoga kill. It's really hard to not make that, because that's something I never could have imagined that scene.
It's not just a kill that you haven't seen before, it's a kill you haven't thought of before.
No, and as much as I really do love that head smashed in rock scene as well, just the long overhead shot of it. I mean, the win goes to that movie for the kill sequence. And you're right, the other one is the bronze medal for the raft.
Yeah.
Because that's pretty cool too.
Well, you're giving out the awards. I might have given it to Savini for the raft massacre, but I'm not really going to fight you on in a violent nature. I mean, if you're there for the kills, and the violent nature definitely delivers. The last nominations that I have is sort of like the what the fuck moments. From No One Lives, I had the Dr. Giggles reference where he uncorks himself from the body of one of his victims. Yeah, and I put the yoga girl in the what the fuck, because that was definitely a what the fuck kill, wasn't it?
Yeah, I thought of that too. That's a what the fuck. I mean, standing up still too.
I put for Desecrated just the ending of that movie, of how like completely unsatisfying and nonsensical. I don't know if it's what the fuck, but I was pretty sure Desecrated wasn't going to walk away with any cherries. Head popped and filled with ooze from Laid to Rest, that nerdy guy getting his head melted while everybody enjoys the show, apparently. The meat grinder sequence also I really enjoyed, when Lee Tergesen, a really good actor, kind of a better actor than the movie deserved, has a prolonged conversation with the guy that he really mistakenly fucked with. I like that. And I guess I also put the eyeglass again, Lost After Dark. A lot of double downs on this. I was having trouble with my nomination for Lost After Dark. Maybe I will change that at the last minute, and I will put it to the kill of our celebrity guest star. Sorry, I just blanked on his freaking name. The T-1000. He has this big brazen... Robert Patrick, thank you. He has this big brazen standoff with the killer, Jode, and he's going to tear him a new asshole. I'm not scared of you. Smash cut to he no longer has his head. Anyway, do you have other WTF nominations, or do you want to pick a win out of that? Or?
Well, there's a couple more moments I think would qualify as being nominated. When you're the first moment, that what the fuck feeling, that first moment you recognize George Costanza in The Burning.
Yeah.
It's a weird moment when you're like, if you don't know going in, you're like, wait, isn't that's George Costanza? This is a movie about nothing. Yeah, and there's a couple others. I wrote some down. You mentioned most of them. I mean, we talked about the missing reel.
Yeah.
Enough. I don't even want to give that another nomination. But
I didn't want to reward it.
You know, the first time you're watching it in a violent nature, that 20 minutes of footage after or
the ending,
where you're wondering what the fuck is going on. Do I have to listen to this story about a bear? Is this leading to something? But the winner, I think, is something. The most what the fuck to me, I think, maybe is in Lost After Dark, when that girl decides to break her puppy's neck.
Oh, good choice.
We didn't mention that they're hiding from the killer in a car. And,
I forgot about
they
that.
They have a dog with them, but she snuck her little puppy in her purse or something. Just a small toy dog. And yeah, the dog starts whining, and she's like, you got to shut that thing up. And she just, without thinking, just twists its neck. And that was like, whoa, that wasn't the tone of this movie before.
And again, how was that being played? Was that supposed to be funny? Was that supposed to be horrifying? Like, the movie doesn't seem to know.
Well, I think I chuckled a bit and we're like, what? No! What? We don't kill dogs. I mean, if the killer kills a dog, that's one thing, but we're just doing it to shut the thing up. That was sort of off.
And it didn't pay off. The killer knew exactly where they were the whole time anyways. So.
Yeah, and he showed that with a bloody pitchfork, I believe. But yeah, I think, so I mentioned that one. You said, oh, good pick.
Yeah, solid pick. I didn't think of that one. I probably should have. Well done. This is why you're here, Scott.
Yeah.
Is that your Victor then?
Yeah, I'm going to give it to Lost After Dark because that one really made me think, whoa, what? What the fuck?
I'm not going to fight you on any of those, but after watching 6 slasher movies, we're both winners. So, thank you so much for yet again returning to Rank and Review. This will be your last appearance for season 11, but I'm gonna hopefully keep you around and have you back on the show.
Well, we'll see if someone can take my crown.
Yeah, go forward in the rest of your day knowing that you are a champion, sir.
I will.
Boom. Oh dear, everybody have a silent moment for Mr. Beckman. Lee is going to be super disappointed that he has been dethroned. But I don't know, maybe it was just the stars aligning. Scott and I have done 3 slasher episodes specifically now, at least on that, and it's kind of weird that we haven't had a clicking sort of lining up of movies before now, but I guess today was the day. It was the right list, it was the right time. So, sorry buddy, but there it is. What did you guys think, other than Mr. Beckman? We know what Mr. Beckman thought, but everyone else. What did you think of this episode of Rank and Review? How did we do ranking these slasher movies and these slashers? Were we too hard on No One Lives or not hard enough on In a Violent Nature? I would welcome your feedback. That's at ranknreview@gmail.com. That's ranknreview@gmail.com. The website is ranknreview.ca. My friend Jason Dubray has a podcast called The Shelf Shedding Movie Show, so if you need something to fill your ears with in the gaps in between episodes, I think you should maybe consider his podcast. I do appreciate you listening to Rank and Review. Please tell that other movie freak in your life about the show, and please, wherever you are, whoever you are, have a great rest of your day.